Good afternoon, everyone. We are right at the top of the hour. We give everyone just a second to come on in and join us. All right. We are right at the top of the hour. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Monica Lewis, and I'm honored to facilitate this important conversation on behalf of the National Center for Family and Parent Leadership. The National Center exists to elevate and support parent leadership across early childhood systems. We believe that families are not just stakeholders in the work, they are leaders, experts, and essential partners in creating systems that truly serve children and communities. You can learn more about our work across access resources, including past webinars at parentleadership.org. This session is designed to challenge the traditional approach to parent engagement and instead highlight what becomes possible when systems move beyond consultation and truly share decision-making power with families. We will feature leaders who have partnered with parent advisory groups that hold real influence, supported advocacy, efforts that shifted resources, and embraced innovation sparked by parent-led ideas. Before we dive in, I want to share how today's hour will flow. I'll introduce each of our panelists as they come on screen, then we'll move into our discussion questions. We've reserved about 10 minutes for your questions, so please utilize the Q&A feature to submit those as we go. Also, I want you to know that a recording of this webinar will be sent out after today's session to everyone who registered. Any questions we don't get to during our time together will be sent to our panelists and we'll share their responses with all of the attendees in a follow-up email. Now, let me introduce our incredible panel. First, we have Erin Arango Escalante, and she is the founder of All Children Thrive, which helps communities ensure children and families are connected, safe, healthy, and equipped for lifelong success. She has over 2 decades leading cross-sector early childhood systems at the local, state, and national levels. She partners with policymakers, funders, and state leaders, including agencies in Illinois and Wisconsin, to co-design equitable early childhood systems centered on children, families, and the workforce. Next, we have Naila Adama, and she is a dedicated educator and advocate with over 20 years of service in the school district of Beloit. A Herb Cole Teacher Fellow, she is committed to equity, family engagement, and whole child development. Naila has held multiple leadership roles, being on the parent leadership team. She's the advisor for Minority Excellence Organization, facilitating 7 Habits and mindfulness training for educators. A community leader, she serves as the Beloit Police and Fire Commissioner, a parent advisor to Wisconsin's PCAC, and a SEEDS workshop facilitator. Her work is grounded in her 8 children, her students, and a vision of equitable systems for all. And Dr. Sadia Batul is the early childhood family lead for early childhood comprehensive systems and physician advocate at the Pennsylvania Office of Child Development and Early Learning. Her passion for the early childhood field stems from her personal experience of receiving life-changing early intervention services for her daughter. She serves as the governor-appointed parent co-chair of the Pennsylvania State Interagency Coordinating Council, advancing authentic family engagement, cross-sector collaboration, and equity across maternal and prenatal to 3 systems. To our panelists, thank you for your time, your leadership, and your willingness to engage in what I know will be a rich and candid discussion. A coffee conversation, as I described to the panel yesterday. Too often, parent engagement stops at surveys and advisory seats. Today, we're exploring what happens when parents aren't just consulted, but when they co-create solutions, influence resources, and hold real decision-making authority. Let's get started. I want to ground our conversation today in the lived experience of leadership and power. We talk often about engagement, voice, and partnership, but today we're going deeper. We're talking about decision making. Naila, I'd like to begin with you. When did you realize parents were being treated as advisors rather than decision makers?
Hi, Monica, and thank you for having me. I appreciate this conversation so much. To share a little bit about how I became a parent leader and stepped away from the advisor, it starts with a lot of nonsense, period. Um, I've been in this work for as long as I've had children and a little bit before, because I've always been an advocate for my own children, and by extension, their friends and their parents who didn't understand how to navigate certain systems. And so, because I have a degree and I'm able to speak the language of academia and our school systems, I was invited to be on different boards and different leadership councils for parents. And I realized that there were certain voices that were being excluded. I was the more palatable of some options. And so I could say things in a way that people heard it and but and were able to accept it, but they still would move on it. So it was very much most of my previous experience previous to PCAC was very much check the box tokenism. And literally after decades of it, it just kind of got it to be a thing where it was nope, I'll be the one who says what needs to be said. And some people don't see that as leadership. They see it as being a confrontationalist. But I was okay with being confrontational to other people if it meant that I was helping my community. Um, so for many, many, many years, it was all about not even advisory. It was the illusion of advising that we were
And
being invited to tables. I didn't, even in this role now as PCAC, this is very new to actually feel like a leader that's accepted. And it was because of PCAC that I saw that what it could be like. Um, we were very intentional about how parents were engaged, but then it went from engagement to empowerment. And I think that was the difference when I saw parents starting to be empowered to take on these problems and as being treated as the experts that they were. So that is how I came to see that, parents, we're good at advising. We give great advice. It's usually not followed in too many instances, but PCAC helped me see how we can move from advisory to actual leadership and that shared power. So.
I love that. Sadia, what has changed structurally? Policies, governance, funding, roles?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Monica, for having me. Um, I'm coming to this conversation with my experience both as a family leader and also now working for the Office of Child Development and Early Learning, which is a state agency in Pennsylvania, supported both by the Department of Health, Education and Department of Human Services. Um, when it comes to the changes structurally, I actually want to take a step back and talk a little bit about the foundation of what really changes structurally, and it is the commitment to family voices, to really making sure that family voice is not a checkbox, and the acknowledgement, first and foremost, that families are experts, families are
Mhm.
leaders, are not only on their own child and family, but also experts because they know what's working and what's not working within a system. And so, and again, I say this with acknowledgement that systems everywhere look different. Family engagement and leadership is not a one size fit all model. What works for Pennsylvania or in Pennsylvania may not work for and in other states. But I think when I first started my journey as a family leader, as a parent in 2016, 2017, I was completely clueless. At the time, if you asked me, what does family leadership mean? I probably will have no answer. But I think it was the commitment and acknowledgement of the system leaders that introduced me to this work that I saw this work as really important. I saw my value as being important as a family leader. And I think that acknowledgement goes from just beyond, again, checking the box that a family leader is present at a state level advisory committee meeting, but how you address them, how you interact with them. And so using this term family leader for me for the first time at a state ICC, state interagency coordinating meeting, I said to myself, who me, family leader? I am just a parent. And I trust me, I'm not that parent anymore. I know I am the parent. But at the time, so I think that's the most important foundational change. And then I think one of the biggest and the most important structural change, I would not even call it change, but a foundation that has existed within our office that has really made family leadership an essential component of the work is making sure that families are compensated for their time and expertise. And I know we're going to talk more about that, but I think that's one of the biggest structural things we have in our office. An example of that is, and I'll specifically talk within the early intervention system. So in Pennsylvania, the early intervention system is unique because we have what is called the Early Intervention Services Act of 2012 that established early intervention as a birth to five program. And within that act, we have that 3 to 4% of the state funding will go towards professional development, which includes family engagement and leadership. So when you have in your legislation, and then you, of course, at our office, we have a reimbursement policy. So no matter who is in the office, the policy has to be followed. And that's a structural, I think, shift that has really made sure that family leadership is not an afterthought, but an essential component when you are getting ready for maybe like applying a new grant, starting a new initiative. Families are always at the table because we really believe nothing about you without you.
Thank you. I love that. Thank you for sharing such thoughtful reflections. What we're hearing is that moving from consultation to true decision making is a process that requires intention, courage, and structural change. It's clear that shared power isn't just a concept, it shows up in real policies, governance structures, funding decisions, and defined roles that make parent leadership tangible and meaningful. Aaron, what resistance or fears surfaced when power began to shift?
Well, hello and thank you, Monica. I am so excited we're talking about this spectrum or this continuum of engagement because I think it's really relevant, particularly in this question. I love this question. It's interesting when we think about this continuum of really like informing all the way to like power building and community-led transformation. I see the tensions begin to surface as we go closer to community-led transformation. So the check the box, it feels good. People are doing it. It's an easy. There's not a lot of tension there. But when we move to this co-designing power building, this is when the fear kicks up a few notches. And I think it's about losing control. And I think there's a few reasons as to why this fear is beginning to surface. First, like our systems have been designed to be quite transactional and they are valuing, right, compliance structures. They're valuing like timelines and deliverables and efficiencies. And thirdly, they're valuing professional expertise, which I think we can talk about in just a second. And so when you involve parents, people are feeling like it is disruptive to this awfully transactional system. It takes time, introduces this unpredictability that occurs, and a little bit of like this unknown. And so I would hear these concerns around, oh, it's going to take too much time, or oh, perhaps it doesn't jive. The information that parents are sharing isn't going to jive with the research or the data that we have, or even fear of being challenged publicly.
Mhm.
And so, one of the biggest issues that I see kind of at the end of that spectrum is regarding this tension around professional expertise. Who's right? Um, and it's a tricky one. I think I've a lot to share about that particular piece, and we're going to talk about it later. But I just want to say, like, that is to me where the tension comes in is this concept of professional expertise. I personally, I view lived experience as the expertise and often the most important form of expertise in this space. And we're going to talk, I know more about that, and I could go on for a really long time, but when I see that continuum, people, going across that continuum, that's when I see those tensions flare. And I think there's ways to deal with it, and we can talk about that later too.
Absolutely. Sadia, you talked about some of the structural changes or foundations, as you mentioned. Can you share what made that shift sustainable rather than symbolic?
Absolutely. And I know we've been asked to share some concrete examples. So as I was thinking about my response, an example that really stood out to me in terms of making something sustainable rather than just, a symbolism that a family leader is present, comes from my experience with the State Interagency Coordinating Council, which I'm sure many of you know is a governor-appointed council. It is required by the Individuals with Disability Education Act that every state has one. And it advises the Bureau for Early Intervention Services and Family Supports in Pennsylvania, which is the lead agency to ensure integrated EI services are provided to Pennsylvania families. And we have our state ICC meetings, which are public meetings, and they happen every other month. And I have been on the state ICC since 2017. Meetings happen every other month. And we've never had a meeting that did not start with a family story. It's been years. We always have a family story, and that family story really sets the tone for that 2.5 hour meeting. And it could be a challenge to get a family leader to share their story at every state ICC meeting. But one of the structural, procedures that we have within our office is that we have a dedicated team of family engagement consultants that make sure that one, a family is identified for those state ICC meetings, and then they have the supports that are needed to make sure whether it's putting together their PowerPoint, rehearsing, or anything training technical assistance they need to present their story in a meaningful way. And I will tell you, and I will encourage everyone who would like to attend those meetings because these are public meetings. We have on an average 80 plus individuals attending our state ICC meetings. These are early intervention providers, administrators, early childhood staff, families, of course. It is one of the most important and one of the favorite agenda items. And every presenter that comes after it will go back to what the family said. And again, the reason we've been able to sustain that is because we have dedicated funding to do that. We have dedicated staff to do that for our state ICC. And one of the reasons we're having this sustainability is also because there is an intentional effort, especially within the office that I represent, to recruit people with lived experiences.
Mhm.
And so almost all our family engagement consultants or staff that directly work with family leadership opportunities are individuals who have lived experience navigating early intervention or early childhood services. We certainly have other roles that may not be related directly to family engagement and leadership, but that directly influence funding or how these opportunities should be laid out. And those individuals certainly bring a lot of that lived experience. And that is, again, my own example. I made this shift from a family leader to now working on a federal grant that Pennsylvania has. And I will say when I first was selected, I was a little nervous because I had never worked professionally in the field of systems change. And I thought to myself, how am I going to do this? But it was the commitment of our system leaders that if we need somebody to do family engagement work, we need to bring somebody who has an experience of a family leader because they know what works, but most importantly, they know what doesn't work and how can we make that work. So I think that really helps make work sustainable.
Absolutely. And I love that. I really hope other states are listening about that true importance of if you're going to have a parent engagement specialist, it probably should come from a parent leader. I love that. We all know my story that I started as a parent leader and we're now over here managing and supporting the National Center for Family and Parent Leadership, leading where and starting and showing what we actually mean by it is one of my favorite parts over here at the center. We also heard the challenges and fears that surfaced when power begins to shift, which reminds us that transformation isn't always comfortable, but it's necessary for authentic engagement. And importantly, the strategies that made these changes sustainable rather than symbolic show us that commitment, accountability, and consistent inclusion are what moves systems from tokenism to true partnership. This gives us a strong foundation to explore how parent and system leaders can continue building on this work together. So let's pivot to the parent perspective, where Naila and Sadia can share more about their expertise. Naila, when did you feel you moved from participant to leader?
Um, I'm going to say again, when I joined PCAC, initially when I joined, I got the invitation, I did the interview process. It was absolutely because I was ready to fight. Like we're not about to do. I tell everybody like I was ready. Gloves are off. I'm sick of these people coming and extracting this information from us and doing nothing with it.
Hmm.
I was ready to be the one. If nothing else, they would know. Don't do that again. Fortunately, that's exactly what it wasn't. A lot of effort behind the scenes that I still like. We do things, and I'm still appreciating some things that I have no idea what happened behind the scenes. That they were very intentional about the way in which they engaged us. We built a lot of trust because Aaron was speaking about that tension. There's also some tension for parent leaders who are coming from these hurt places. So we had to learn that this was a safe place, and they did that by first of all putting their money where their mouth was. So if nothing else, you weren't wait if they did waste your time, at least you didn't take off of work for nothing. Um, so we were compensated financially, but we were also respected. We had coaching to, like I said, it went from engagement to empowering us, and we were always asked before anything went beyond our little group, are these the right questions? And when that power truly became shared, when they didn't just say, are these the right answers? Are we looking at, they asked, are these even the questions that we should be asking?
Mm.
According to you and your lived experience and what you know about your community, that's when I knew, okay, this is different. There's potential here to make some real changes. I'm not just a check mark. It's not just a check mark with a little bit of money behind it. They truly, the paradigm is shifted. There's a values difference, and they actually want me there as a leader for myself and my community. So, and we're
I
still
love.
learning. We still have some, but it's a cycle. It's not a straight trajectory, but it has been a beautiful experience. So,
Wow. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Sadia, we would love to hear your thoughts as well.
Thank you so much, Monica. I think for me, it was my first ever state interagency coordinating council meeting because that's what brought me to the world of family leadership. And I remember when I first got my invitation, I looked it up what a state ICC is. And, it wasn't something that I thought is for families because the term itself, state interagency coordinating council, and at the time, I'm a parent of a child who's just diagnosed with autism. There's just so much I'm navigating, a system that I had absolutely no clue. But the reason I went to my first state ICC meeting was also because of the quest for more information and understanding of the system of a newly diagnosed child with autism. Because I thought if I don't know what I need to know, how am I going to support my child? And so I go to this meeting, which was predominantly professionals at the time. It was an in-person meeting pre-COVID, and I'm very shy and very quiet. And I sit there, and a gentleman approaches me, and he's very kind in his tone, and he introduces himself. He asks me to introduce myself, and he was the bureau director of the early intervention at the time. And he said something that has stayed with me and actually was something, and I apologize, I'm going to get emotional a bit. And he was the one who really inspired me to make this career shift from being
Mm.
a physician to now working in systems changes. That he said, you are the reason we do this work. So please tell us, what can we do better? And I think it was not just those words, because I saw those things that I shared are not working,
Hmm.
that they were taking into consideration into making that a priority for the conversation. And at the time, again, I had absolutely no clue what even family leader means, or if I have a role to influence anything that happening at the state level. That conversation really helped me understand my value as a parent and moved my perspective of that I am not just a parent. My voice is really important here.
I love that. I'm also a part of Michigan's Interagency Coordinating Council because I also have a kiddo with superpowers. And sitting in those rooms definitely, it's different. It's something that if the right people aren't around you that push you, and I am so glad that you had the right person near you as well, that just gives you that the notion to continue pushing your own voice forward. And look at both of us just moving forward. I love that. Sadia, can you tell me more about the signals that you told you your voice really carried real weight, and how did you know your perspective mattered?
Absolutely. I think I'll probably now shift to my systems leader
Mhm.
role and share a few concrete examples. I think certainly that psychologically safe environment in meetings, especially where we have a lot more professionals than we have families, I think that's the key, that trusting relationship. But even other things like, for example, one of the biggest change that happened as a result of family feedback and family input was within our reimbursement procedures, where in my time as a family leader, even if I had got a scholarship to attend a state level conference or anything that involved travel, I would have to make my own reservations for lodging. And as you know, that for many individuals, that could be a burden, a financial burden, because you're putting down a couple of $100s and then you're waiting 2 to 3 weeks for the reimbursements to come through. And we would have these debriefs after every event. And now you're going to share something that could be really personal, but it could also be a constructive feedback that, you are providing us with this reimbursement that's not working. But that environment was created where we felt comfortable sharing. And I'm so excited to share that as a result of that feedback from families, our office has changed their reimbursement policy to now our office always makes upfront reservation. And this change happened in the last 5 months, 5 years, sorry. And so, whether it's conferences, going out of state for events, our office makes upfront reservations so families do not have to put hundreds of dollars down and wait for reimbursements. And that really increases participation, because if you're asking families to put down all that money and wait for reimbursement, it could limit participation for many
Hmm.
families. And I totally understand that because I've had that experience too myself when I was a family leader. And I think that is something, when you share your feedback about what doesn't work and then you see it in action, the changes that are made as a result, I think that's the biggest signal to me. And again, that goes back to why I made this career shift, because I know this work has value.
Thank you. Naila, can you talk a little bit about financial and intangible compensation? Were you compensated or supported in ways that really honored your expertise?
Absolutely. And as I said before, I come from a space for decades, literally, that wasn't the case. So it was almost uncomfortable to a point, like, oh my gosh, they're paying me to do what I would have done anyways because I like to fight with these people at this point. Um, but so we are as a council compensated and travel reimbursed. We can compensate, and it's not even like for hotels and things like that, for our time. And just being somebody saying, hey, we are taking this information, we're asking you to go back and get this information. That's worth something to us. I'm always a person when it comes to these bureaucracies and government and all, put your money where your mouth is. Like you can say it's important all the live long day, but if you're not willing to put finances behind it, I kind of don't believe you. With PCAC and the work that we do, the fact that they treat us like the experts. Because I've seen people pay thousands of dollars for somebody who has done research, extracting information from other communities and presenting it. But then when those actual people are in the room, they can't even get a gift card about you. It's ridiculous.
Hmm.
So absolutely, yes, we have been compensated. I hope that I want to amplify the whole idea of codifying this thing, like you say, Sadia, that the governor appoints that this is something they say, nope, this is important. We're going to finance it like it's important. It's going to be basically the law that this has to happen. It needs to happen across the board.
Hmm.
That compensation is not just monetary, though monetary is important. And I won't forget, universal basic income should be the way we're moving, so that parents can always be involved in these types of things without worrying about their finances. But until we get there, we absolutely need to be compensating and compensating well. If you're willing to pay somebody who doesn't actually have the lived experience, then you should be willing to pay for somebody who does. I always like to think of it. I saw this thing about a plumber. Like, you get mad because you pay a plumber $150 an hour to come and do something that takes 20 seconds for them, but you're paying for that expertise and that experience. They put
Hmm.
in years to be able to come in that 2 seconds and diagnose your problem and fix it the right way. So
Absolutely.
pay and compensate your lived experts the same way that you would somebody who's been extracting information from those experts for years.
Absolutely. Claudia?
Monica, I just wanted to add two things. One, a clarification that the reimbursement policy that I was referring to is something that's housed within the Office of Child Development and Early Learning and the family engagement initiatives that, of course, come out of it. It's not for all the state agencies. Just wanted to make that clarification. And then the other thing I think is really important as we talk about compensating families, and again, this both is a personal and now a professional experience, that it is not only the time that they're attending meetings, events, trainings, it's also the time they're preparing for those things. When you're asking a family to attend a 2 hour state level advisory committee meeting, yes, they are getting a consulting fee or an honorarium for that time. But if we are asking them to come prepared with the evaluation results that will be discussed,
Mhm.
as a professional, I am being paid for that time. But are we making sure that families who are spending their valuable time, and these are maternal and early childhood families that have young children, uh, regardless of the age of children, they have jobs, they have other things that they need to take care of. So why are we not making sure that those families also receive time for their prep work? And so that again is something that is built within our reimbursement policy, that they will be reimbursed not just for honorarium, but also for childcare,
Mhm.
because you might be asking them to present at a 2-hour session at a statewide conference. Now what are they going to do to make sure their children are safe and entertained while they are busy with prepping? So we really need to make sure that we're also thinking about some of those non-traditional ways to support families, as they are participating as equal partners, if we think of them as such.
Absolutely. I love that. Based on what you shared with us in your experience, Naila, please let us know what advice you would give to systems trying to move beyond tokenism.
Um, can you repeat the question? I got
Yes.
lost in universal basic income because you know I'm gonna say it, Aaron.
No. Please let us know what advice you would give to systems trying to move beyond tokenism.
First and foremost, I'm gonna go back to what Sadia and Aaron mentioned is that intentionality. You have to go into this work with a clear intention of putting yourself out of work is how I like to think about it. Like when you go into this work, it should be, we don't need these systems anymore because we've solved the problem. And if you go into it with that mindset, then it's not about you holding on to that power. It's about you making this, recreating the system so that these problems aren't a problem anymore. You can only do that if you're willing to talk to the people and listen to the people who those problems impact, or the solution lies with the people who are having the issue. Um, so first and foremost, you have to have your, society said, you have to have that foundation right. If you don't,
Absolutely.
it always reverts back to tokenism and checking the box and distrust and more nonsense. So before you do anything, before you even call a parent, get your people in order in that system. This is the plan. We're going to put ourselves out of a job by listening to the people who actually have the solutions. We're going to do whatever we need to do to support those people. And if whatever you're saying doesn't align with that, you need to start over.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Check in the chat. Naila, it is so good to hear you speaking truth powerfully. Seeing you on the screen has made my day. And then Arthur stated, thank you for sharing the importance of valuing parents' time financially, but also by truly partnering with them. As part of the Parent Leader Network, we included those principles in the Parent Manifesto, and he's provided a link as well. Moving back to our conversation, I want to shift now and talk about the lens from a system leader. Naila, still feel free to chime in. Aaron, I'd like to begin with you. What made you willing to share decision-making authority?
Yeah. You know, I'm going to be real honest here. Previously, I was an appointee overseeing early care and education for the state. I made a lot of mistakes. Like I am well aware of the mistakes I made. Decisions were made. Decisions did not include family voice.
Mhm.
Everything from childcare subsidy, licensing to quality rating and improvement systems to even like applications and forms and things that truly impacted families. And I realized that. I was frustrated. My team was frustrated. We were just missing the mark on so many levels. And like uptake in specific programs, it wasn't happening as we had expected. And communities were frustrated. Like all of those things happened. And it's hard to talk about it, like almost like I failed. And I recognize that. But I knew we had to make a change. I knew that we had to try something new and really change our ways of working, and particularly from communities that didn't trust the state. That was very intentional. And so that is why we created the Parent and Caregiver Advisory Cabinet, or the PCAC that Naila's been talking about. I couldn't keep doing it. Like it hurt in my heart
Mhm.
to just keep doing it this way. It hurt. PCAC was a total game changer for me personally and professionally. Um, it actually became, and Naila was a big reason for this. why I decided to leave my role. So I went the opposite way of Sadia. We were kind of switching here, and I went outside government. But because of the PCAC, I knew inside government, I knew how to navigate it, and I felt like I could elevate the voices of parents and communities that didn't have that great relationship with the state. So I continue to work with the PCAC, and of course, I get to see Naila very often, but doing so outside and elevating. So there's this inside outside partnership that is quite frankly pretty magical. As Naila said, we have a ways to go. We're learning as we go, but doing this together, both inside outside government, really community centered, parent centered, has been incredible. And I'll give one just additional example, and this is really specific to where. To Naila, where you live, some work that we did together in the city of Beloit. And I just want to just touch on it really quickly because I think it elevates some of the shared decision making power. Naila, along with the city of Beloit, were really interested in childcare deserts, understanding Beloit as a childcare desert. And Naila is really amazing in leading this work to better understand with community what was going on. And what we found is that, yes, there were childcare deserts, but there were other things that were related, such as transportation. The bus routes were changed, the location of the bus routes were changed. All of these other things that were underlying that we were able to surface. And that's when Naila really taught me, are we are you asking the right questions? Great and groovy, you're asking questions, but like let's talk about the right questions to ask. And so that was really coming out. So I just wanted to name that as an example, is that work in Beloit was able to advance statewide work and be a model for other places too. So just wanted to name that as well.
Yes, thank you. Sadia, same question to you.
Sure. Thank you so much. And you said it so wonderfully. It's hard to follow, but I think in for us in Pennsylvania, I will say, especially within my office, what really helped me to share decision-making authority was because I was switching from a personal experience where I was in the position where that decision-making authority was shared with me. And so it was almost like a standard practice in our work, in our office especially. But I'm somebody who really likes to go back to the foundation. And earlier I talked about the commitment to family voice. But I think in addition to the commitment, it's also helping families to understand that they bring power. And, yes, they may not have the title or the role or the positional power, as we like to call in traditional ways, but they bring expert power. And sometimes that expert power is what professionals may not even have. And so I think that realization has really helped me in understanding that I have power. And again, when I came into this professional role as a systems leader, I was able to continue doing that with now the families that I work with. But I will also be transparent that it can be challenging sometimes, and it is a learning in progress kind of a phenomenon. And so, again, having those strong mentors and people, I know many times in conversations where we are working on initiatives and we need to make decisions, my director will say, "You're the family engagement consultant. You're the expert. Tell me, what should we do?" And so I'm able to now, really realize that, okay, yes, I have early intervention experience with my daughter, but that was almost 6, 7 years ago. So now I need to really make sure that the decisions are being made on the basis of the family's experiences who are currently navigating services. Because yes, my experience is very important, but it might not be relevant because I had my experience pre-COVID and the world looks very different now. So I think that realization that families who are navigating services are experts really helps to kind of have this understanding that we need to share power.
Absolutely. And then just not picking one and sticking to just the stories of the ones who are moving forward.
Yes.
There are
Yeah.
so many other voices behind ours, like you said, that are different. My kiddo's older. I can't still be telling you how I navigated through early intervention or through all of the appointments or through home visiting or any of the things because it doesn't look the same. It was all pre-COVID. Aaron, how did you address internal resistance?
Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier about that resistance. A couple things I will say. One, what I learned was messaging alone, like communicating about this change wasn't enough to handle the resistance. It needed to show up in action as a commitment. We're talking a lot about commitment here. Um, and and there were, when I think about it, there are about five like structural changes that helped to address some of this internal resistance. It also made people uncomfortable, not gonna lie. Like it did, and I think it was okay to be uncomfortable. The first one that came to mind is really um, asking parents to assess our current practices using that continuum that I keep bringing up. Naila, and I remember doing this with Naila, like, let's be real, like, where are we at? And like, where do we want to go? So understanding where we are and like identifying a little bit of that misalignment, like, I thought we were over here. Like, no, we're not. Let's talk through that. So that was one. Another one is co-designing almost like your theory of change. Like what is it? Like what do we need to engage, to think about leadership development, systems change, and the outcomes that families are actually asking for? Like how do we put this all down on paper and make sure we're holding ourselves accountable to this? So getting that like theory of change on paper. We also, to help with this resistance, had to co-build these structures. And so talking about a little bit of like codifying those structures has been key. In some states I work with, there are like statutory changes that are needed, and like changing your ways of working so that, your council is perhaps 51% of parent members, that kind of thing. So that structure, though, those like actual structures that existed, I think are really key, like the PCAC that we've been talking about. I think the other piece around commitment to help with that resistance, is we talked about this, is having the resources and like, no, this is it. Like there is money, there is budget with like there is money earmarked for this in the appropriate amount of money that is needed to truly
Mhm.
compensate our families. That includes, and it's not 1 year of funding, it's multiple years of funding. Um, that includes transportation, childcare, interpretation, translation, their time, their prep work. I will go on and on and on. No matter, we need to reduce every single barrier to authentically engage and participate, period. Like it could be a computer for technology or MiFi. I will go on and on. But if it is not that, then we have a problem. So there was this budget, and that is part of that commitment that is being that is helping with this resistance issue. The last one, the fifth one for me is really around this narrative change and like learning practices. We needed to understand internally history, local history, the context of what's happening, and like interpreting our data with our parents rather than in isolation, and thinking about even like things like our research opportunities that are happening and who's doing the research. So those like five things in my head, if I had to like boil down of how we addressed some of this resistance, are ways that we sort of shifted and began to move on the spectrum to get to where the PCAC originally thought we were to where then we need to go and make sure everybody came with us.
Absolutely. Sadia, can you walk us through what practical changes you had to implement?
Absolutely. I think I'll piggyback on what Erin talked about data. I think data accessibility for families is so important. Um, I know when in my time as a family leader, there were conversations about data. I had to go back and really look what, people were talking about, really kind of take the time to prepare for those conversations. And especially in some of these state level grants, for example, the one that I work on, the Early Childhood Comprehensive Systems grant, data is a big piece. And earlier I talked about having an advisory committee, and we have this requirement of 25% of parent caregivers as members of that committee. And every year we conduct an evaluation survey with our advisory committee members who represent a variety of maternal and early childhood system leaders. And of course, families are in presence as well. It's the Wilder Inventory Collaboration Factor Survey. And we're asking families to complete a survey that they may not know much about. And so one of the practical changes we implemented is we hosted a data session that included only our family leaders, our external evaluator for the grant, and the ECCS team to really have some of those conversations like, what do we mean by an annual evaluation survey? What are these reporting requirements that you as advisory committee members have an influence, have an authority to really impact those results? Because we're asking them to complete the survey without telling them what the survey is and how the results will be used. So it was during those conversations that one of the family leaders said something so profound. She shared how she did not complete the survey last year because we had used this term, partners complete the survey. And we always say partners, including family leaders. But again, we need to be more clear in the language that we use. And so we really supported them in understanding that when we mean partners, it includes family leaders, but it is also really important that as system leaders, we make sure that the terminologies we're using are really clear to not just families, but also to other professionals who may not know them. Another thing that I really wanted to share is also one of the practical strategies that we have in terms of just sharing decision making is that when we have initiatives, for example, we host an annual family story workshop for families of pregnant and parenting families of children ages 6 and under. We have a planning committee that, of course, has staff, but it also has at least two family leaders, one who may have attended the past year workshop, and we try to recruit a second family leader as well. And they have an equal partnership in deciding on the agenda of the workshop. I know from one of the first workshops that I did in isolation, we had this introduction activity that I thought was the perfect introduction activity for the workshop. But the following year, the family leader on the steering committee suggested a completely different activity as an introduction for the workshop. And ever since that has been part of the workshop, because it was something that works for families. And it came from a family leader and ever since has been. And every year we try to, revise the agenda of the workshop, again, really make sure families have a voice in that. And also, I would say, in terms of practical changes, how we are making budget decisions. This ECCS grant that I am on, we are two team members, myself, who works everything family engagement and leadership. And then we have the early childhood lead who is there because of her professional experience. And when the annual budget of our grant is being decided, we both have equal partnership in bringing ideas to the decision-making table. And it is a collective team effort in deciding what's happening with the budget, in the following year. So I think those are really important changes that we need to make sure that when we bring families to the table, it's really helping them first and foremost understand their role as vital partners, and then making sure they have everything they need to efficiently and meaningfully participate.
Thank you. I hope everyone is gaining value from the wisdom that these women are sharing. Erin, what would you do differently if you started all over again?
Yeah, I mean, hindsight is 2020 here. I wish I would have known what I know now, because quite frankly, like everything about my like who I am and what I bring has changed. That's part of the journey. I've recognized that. And here's a couple of nuggets that I would do differently. One, really done some professional development with staff to be ready. What does that mean to be ready, and how to show up, how to listen, how to be in community, in space, and just all of that professional development. Um, I I didn't realize then the local history and the context, how important that is in community and for our work. So that's one. I would have loved to make structural changes while inside government permanent. So codifying these things. One of which is I mentioned this before, a multi-year budget with diverse funding sources. So thinking both public and private funding. Um, just so that we can continue, especially when there's an administration change. So that's another just nugget that I want to, in hindsight there. Um, and when I think about also coalition development, um, parents need to be at the center in coalitions. I think it's really a community, a public and a private, or, philanthropy and government and community there, but really having parents be part of coalitions and being centered in coalitions is one thing that that I think is evolving now, and I just wish we would have done it just so much earlier um, to get this work done. So I'll stop there. There's so many more things in
Yeah,
hindsight. My goodness.
thank you. This work is challenging, but as we've heard today, when families are genuinely co-creators, the outcomes are stronger, more equitable, and lasting. Thank you all so much for these thoughtful and honest responses. We have a few minutes for some questions from the audience, and we do have some questions from the audience. Um, the first one is, how can we better prepare the professionals on these committees and councils to learn how to listen to the real experts, the family leaders? Anyone can answer. Anybody jump in to answer?
I'm happy to share just a few things we're doing in Pennsylvania, if that's helpful to others. Within the ECCS grant, we actually have written within our strategic plan that we will host two annual workshops, one that is specifically for families, but the other that is primarily for professional leaders. And the focus of that workshop is to support them in further enhancing family leadership within maternal and early childhood systems. And we have, worked, collaborated with a number of state and national partners to really bring best practices and interactive ways to really make sure how we can integrate family voice. So that's one of the ways we've done. We conducted a workshop in collaboration with the NAFSCI, the National Association for Family, School, and Community Engagement, to really move from what family engagement is to what family engagement should look like. That was one of the very well received workshops. Just this year, we conducted an adaptive leadership to systems change with both professional and family leaders, another really well received workshop. And we are actually later this month, our office will be officially launching a family leadership toolkit for maternal and early childhood partners, specifically for professional leaders, that provides them with best practices, tools, resources on building blocks of family leadership. So thinking about recruitment, retention, compensation, training, orientation, evaluation, all of these different building blocks that are essential to sustain family leadership. We've developed this toolkit that we are hoping that our maternal and early childhood system leaders will find helpful in further advancing family leadership in Pennsylvania. So those are just some of the things we're doing here in Pennsylvania.
I love that. Naila, did you want to add?
Yes, I think that when you are engaging professionals in this work, you have to be willing to have those hard conversations about the biases they may hold. And you
Hmm.
can't like, I can't cuss, but you can't try to tiptoe around the issue.
Hmm.
Like if you actually want to do this work well, you have to be willing to say, if this person shows up not looking professional, that doesn't make them any less of an expert. And you have to be willing to call people out or call them in, however you want to do it, but it has to be addressed. And you just have to be, you don't have to be mean about it, but you have to
Hmm.
know that that's the work that needs to be done because you could have all the degrees in the world and know how to behave and know how to write things to say, but if your heart isn't where it needs to be when these people are given their expertise, you're still going to make the same dumb decisions. So you
Yeah.
have to be willing to set up systems within your organization to say, hey, this is what we're looking for, this is how we need people to be received, and this is what we're expecting of you. And if as soon as that bias kicks in, like have honest conversations about it, you need to be able to have tools to be like, oh, let me put that aside, let me be more curious about what's going on rather than shutting people out or dismissing their views because it's not from my worldview.
I love that. One more question. In states where government has not funded family leaders, where subsidies and other family supports are being slashed, where the governor does not believe childcare is in crisis and has said that moms can just stay home, how do we shift the narrative and convince those with power that we need to listen to family voice and we need to compensate them?
Tell your government, you're right, parents should be able to stay home, universal basic income. And if you're not willing to do that, then here's some other options. Because you can't have it
Absolutely.
all the ways. I'm sorry, I have no practical solutions for that. but I think it starts with getting community together and making the demands that need to happen. So,
Absolutely. It goes with showing the way that it has worked. Maybe show them this webinar. I don't know.
And
Erin?
yeah, I'll just say too, this is part of the diversify your funding and look at other like philanthropic partners for funding. I just want to name that because there are people that believe that, right, we all here believe that family voice is incredible to the narrative change. It is what is driving this narrative change. And yes, they 100% should be compensated, and they do have the power here. And so to organize and to advocate and to go. And oftentimes it doesn't need to just be public funding. Private funding works at community level, at your state, whatever level it needs to happen. But it can be done. And I think that there is a huge interest right now in narrative change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any final thoughts? Okay.
universal basic income, people. It's the way to go.
I love
Just so
that.
you know.
Just thank
I
you.
appreciate as a parent leader, I'd like to thank you, Monica and Sadia and Aaron. Like this
Was good.
makes my little heart happy that
Hmm.
we are still taking this. It's not just trending for parent engagement, but people are really doing work to make sure that parents and families are being treated like the experts that they are. So thank you for amplifying this. It is greatly appreciated and much needed.
Absolutely. What a powerful conversation. Thank you, thank you, thank you to each of our panelists for your honesty, your leadership, and your commitment to this work. And thank you to everyone who joined us today, whether you listened quietly, submitted questions, or shared your reflections in the chat. Your presence and engagement help move this work forward, and we are grateful to be in community with each of you as we continue working towards healthier outcomes for mothers, babies, and families. As a reminder, our recording of today's webinar will be sent out to all registrants. If we couldn't get to your question during our time together, please know that we will forward those questions to our panelists and share their responses with you via email in a few next coming weeks. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. True family leadership doesn't happen by invitation. It happens when systems intentionally share power, listen deeply, and act on what they hear. Let's take the commitment forward in our own roles and communities. If parents are closest to the impact, they must be closest to the decisions. Shared leadership isn't symbolic, it's structural. To learn more about the National Center for Family and Parent Leadership and to access tools and resources that will support this work, please visit parentleadership.org. Please take the time to complete the survey to provide feedback on today's webinar. And to register for our next webinar, there's also a registration link as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you again for being here and enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend ahead and be on the lookout for an email that has all of the follow-up information. Thank you so much. Have a great day, guys. Thank you each all again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. When I hit end, it'll end it off for all of us, but thank you so
Thank you,
much.
ladies.
Thank you.
Thank
It was a
you.
Thank
pleasure
you.
working.
Have
Take
a
care.
great day. Bye.